Hello, good evening. My name is Ashik, and I'm a participant with this constantly evolving process called the Vikalp Sangam, which in Hindi means alternatives confluence. But what do we mean by a confluence, or what do we mean by alternatives? We'll figure ahead. So before that, let's look at some of the context on which we work on. So the dominant vision of development, it is, as we all know, it is causing violence against nature, communities, and cultures. And we also experience growth. The kind of growth that is being imagined here is a form of cancer that is killing all forms of things or aspects that actually sustain life. And we also experience a certain convergence of crisis, like at multiple levels, at ecological levels, at social levels, economic, political, cultural, personal. I'm not going to the details of the crisis because I believe there is a shared understanding of the crisis or issues that we are facing. So what could systemic alternatives be in a time where we are experiencing multiple crises and at multiple levels? So one form of alternatives, it is definitely a form of resistance. You are resisting all the issues or all the kind of challenges, systemic challenges you're facing. That could be that of capitalism, state domination, patriarchy, caste issues when it comes to India, and many more. But definitely there are other ways of being, doing, thinking, imagining. So this image that is here, it is from the 1970s, where a group of people residing by the Indravati River is resisting a mega hydroelectric project. And the articulation that they had was that for you, the river might be power, but for us, the river is our mother. So how do we bring these articulations in forward and in our daily conversations, and how we are organizing or reorganizing ourselves, whether it be in our workspaces or other spaces that we are part of. So similarly, there are several alternatives across the country. And when I say alternatives, these could be projects, ideas, frameworks, initiatives that offer a counter to the dominant systems, dominant economic or political systems that are exploitative and extractive. And these can be practiced by anyone. It could be practiced by individuals, collectives, communities, civil society organizations, governments, anyone. And when we say alternatives, it also doesn't mean that these are marginal or new. At times, these are a reassertion of something that already existed, or renewed models of ways of being and doing that already existed. So although little dots that you see are actual documented stories of several such initiatives across the country, across sectors. I'll take us through a few of maybe 3 such initiatives. So one is that of Deccan Development Society in Zahirabad, Telangana. It's a 40-year-old initiative. And this place, so they work with women, and it's a collective of women, so to say. And this was a space and place where they experienced marginalization at multiple levels. One, because they were landless farmers. Another, because they were Dalits, mostly Dalits, and there are a few Adivasi communities as well. And third, because of their gender identity of being women. So they formed women's collectives where they worked on empowering the farmers through different farmers collectives, in forms of saving up money, in vocalizing about securing land rights. So this is one of the very few places in the country you will find the land actually being in the name of the women and not the man of the household. So 40 years ago, these were people who didn't have their own land, who worked on the land of the landlords, the zamindars, But today they have their own land, they do their own farming, they run their own PDS, public distribution system. So the government PDS, which offered only say white rice and white sugar and one kind of dal, through the collectives that they created, they secured, or what they worked on was on nutrition security or nutrition diversity in the lands that they cultivated, and they built their own public distribution systems where they offered vegetables, different kinds of millets, grains, and more, pulses and more. And there are several other initiatives that sprung up from such different women's collectives. One is out of Seed Bank. So that is Narsamma that you see. She has been running the Seed Bank for over 30 years, and which supports the farming and livelihood in 75 villages around. And they run a community radio, community media, all run by the women of the community. And also when COVID happened and the lockdown happened and the migrant laborers were returning back to Zahirabad, these were the people who were giving like free drinks, free ragi and other millet-based drinks to the people who were returning, the people who were landless like 40 years ago. Yeah, another initiative is Tribal Health Initiative in Sutlingi Valley in Tamil Nadu. So it began with like a doctor couple, Dr. Reggie and Dr. Lilitha, moving to the village. Moving to the village with this intention or idea that okay, they wanted to practice or use their service in a place where is actually like where it is the most needed. So that was how they identified this village, where the infant mortality rate at the time was 142, which means if 1,000 children are born in a year, like about 142 of them die within the same year. And through equipping people, women in the community as health auxiliaries, they achieved a certain health swaraj. They equipped the community to take care of their own health, and the IMR rate was brought down to less than 5. Now as of now, it's almost 0 in the village. And once this aspect, the most important need was covered, and the next question, okay, what is the next immediate need that is there? They saw that most of the people, like the 90% of the people, they relied on agriculture. And in that, again, majority of people were facing some or the other form of debt. And so they did this whole Padayatra and to study and to understand the form of debt. And what they realized was that the only farmers who were in debt were the people who were following the modern agriculture practices, which kind of became rampant like post the Green Revolution. But people who were practicing traditional forms of farming, they were not dependent year after year on seeds and pesticides and other fertilizers, due to which they had an autonomy for themselves. But so the answer was right in front of them, but it took them 2 years to convince like 4 farmers to convert to organic or natural methods of farming. But today, Sutlingi Organic Farmers Association, over 800 farmers are part of that. They produce their own food, they produce their own cotton, and they've also moved ahead to creating value-added foods such as cookies and other forms of value-added food. And another form is like Porgai, another initiative that sprung out of the same collective. So there's this community called the Lombardy community. They are originally from Afghanistan, and they migrated to different and settled in different parts of India during the Mughal period. And for a few generations, they had settled here. This is the second southernmost part of the country where the Lombardy community settled in. But by now they were predominantly agriculture based. Their livelihoods were farming. But they saw that they had this traditional hand embroidery technique which had been lost for 2 generations. But there were like 2 70-year-old women who had seen their grandmothers doing it as children. So through them, the art was revived and the craft was revived. And today it provides livelihood to over 60 women in the community. And so what makes this initiative like different was that like two doctor couple, they decided to go there. And what makes it an alternative is that they use their skills or expertise in a place where it was in a social or ecological context where it was most required. The third initiative I'll talk about in my own organization, Travelers University. So at Travelers University, we design and facilitate travel-based learning programs. So short-term programs are on like our learning journeys on different thematic areas. It could be the idea of Swaraj or radical democracy, or it could be human river interconnectedness, rethinking economics, and so on. And we also offer a fellowship program for youth who are interested in pursuing livelihoods, which we call. So livelihoods are livelihoods oriented towards social, ecological, and personal well-being. The kind of livelihoods that make us feel alive from within as we are involved in that pursuit. The kind of livelihoods that make communities and the rest of nature experience aliveness. So all the programs or all the learning programs that we design have got these three aspects in them. One is connecting with one's own self, another is connecting with community or people around, and the third is connecting with the rest of nature. Because these are the three levels at which we are experiencing a certain form of alienation, disconnect in today's time. So moving ahead, so there are several hundreds of such initiatives from across the country. I've just shared about 3. And many are not in an organization format. Many are community-driven. Some are individual-driven. Some are government-driven, government bodies-driven. But there are several hundreds of such initiatives. And since 2014, this has been a process, evolving process to understand and learn from from such initiatives. And this framework, or the flower of transformation, as we call it, has evolved from that process. So the flower, it includes 5 petals, 5 interconnected petals. Why interconnected, we will see. So one is that of political, which is direct and delegated democracy. Second is cultural, which is to do with cultural diversity and knowledge democracy. Third, social well-being and justice. Fourth, economic democracy. And fifth, ecological integrity and resilience. But what are these 5? Let's see. So when it comes to ecological integrity and resilience, it is about respecting and being mindful of the ecological limits, any human action being within the limits of ecology, and recognizing humans as part of nature, that we are not separate from nature, and acknowledging the rights of nature. That as we say, we have the idea of human rights is something that has evolved over a period of time. Similarly, we also articulate that the nature has its own rights. It includes conservation, regeneration, and sustainable use of resources. The second is that of social well-being and justice. Here it is about the ability to lead a fulfilling life, fulfilling life in terms of physical, social, cultural, and spiritual terms. And towards equity amongst and eventually eradication of classes, castes, ethnic groups, and abilities, and any differentiation based on any of these identities that we may carry, and removing all the hierarchies based on these ideas. The third, direct and delegated democracy, or reimagining politics. So here, the idea of decision making happening, beginning at the smallest possible level, beginning from that. So to share an example, there is a village of Mendalekha in the Gadchiroli district of Maharashtra, where more than 30 years ago, they articulated that this is what they say: Delhi, Mumbai mein hamari sarkar, hamari gaon mein hum hi sarkar. In Delhi and Mumbai, it is a government that we elect, but in our village, we are the government. So this is also one of the very first communities in India who achieved community forest rights, and it's not just the Gram Sabha, it is the entire village comes together to make any decision on a consensus basis, whether it be how much of forest produce that they should be using, what are the kind of livelihoods that we are creating, and so on. How can we, how can those such decision making happen at the smallest possible levels? And like another approach or like aspects that is being visioned is, can we go beyond boundaries of nation states and state or district boundaries? Because can we look at the geographical aspects? Like say the Western Ghats is spread across multiple states. The Himalayas are spread across multiple countries. The yeah, we have the mangroves in West Bengal and spreading up to Bangladesh and so on. So can we imagine a certain form of governance that, or certain form of policy making that looks into the region as a whole, looking at the cultural and ecological aspects and the needs of those particular regions? And several such collectives, such as Rights of Reverse South Asia, such working groups are being formed, have been formed already, articulating such visions. The fourth is that of a new economics, reimagining economics, where we say the production, consumption, and distribution of resources happen at the most local levels, and then there is open localization that happens. Yeah, I know, thank you. Yeah, so can we reimagine livelihoods, like reintegrating work and leisure in livelihoods? So this is one website you may check out, alivelihood.org. So like at both personal, community, and planet level, how can we pursue certain livelihoods that kind of work towards the well-being at all these three levels? And cultural and knowledge democracy, it is about respecting the diversity that is existent, diversity of languages, diversity of food cultures, and resisting any form of homogenization that occurs here. And any form of learning, like knowledge being in the commons, and information being in the commons, and like everyone having access to resources and knowledge, forms of knowledge to lead ahead. Yeah, so why I said the spheres or the petals are connected, or they are integrated, or there's a metamorphosis of all of these. Because say, like I earlier shared the example of the village in Mendalekha, who say, like in our village we are the government. We also hear similar articulations from the car panchayats in Haryana, where they say, okay, we will decide for our community. We don't want women to wear jeans or like have mobile phones. But so this is why we say, like any form of direct and delegated democracy, it has to go along with the idea of justice. So similarly, if we take the concept of conservation, that is part of the sphere, ecological integrity and resilience. But in many of the conservation models that are running today in the form of the different national parks, we see communities being pushed out, indigenous people, the real custodians of land, being pushed out for that form of conservation. But what we end up with there are dead cheetahs. Yeah, so towards the synthesis, so there are several sectors, like the several organizations, several initiatives working on like all these different sectors. And we realize, we acknowledge that like none of these may be perfect. But if all of these can come together, and if we can learn from each other, we can collectively easily move towards a more ecological and just world. And so at the center of the sphere, which I earlier showed, the flower of alternatives transformation, at the center are a set of values. So how can we imbibe these values in any of the initiatives that we are part of? The values of solidarity, dignity, rights, along with responsibilities, and many more. Okay, just quickly, like how to make these changes happen. Like it's a simultaneous process where we include like multiple kinds of approaches. While we resist the systemic issues, we are also constructing newer models of being and doing. And there are movements of the marginalized communities which require support from the other people who are lesser marginalized or who has access. and transformation, while we aim for like a transformation of the paradigm, can we also make pathways within the existing paradigm for minor transitions to happen? And at the same time, creating visions for the futures. So these are some books you may check out. All of them are freely available for download. Yeah, so this is where the process of Vikalp Sangam comes to be. So the objectives, it includes networking and sharing. So we host these different confluences on different thematic areas. Final 1 minute. On different thematic areas. On, let's say, for example, the theme of food, in the theme of energy, in the theme of indigenous worldviews, and so on. So that is one part. Outreach and visibilizing alternatives through documentation. So the Vikalp Sangam website has over 2,000 stories of such alternatives across the country. My friend Arnaz is the current curator of the website. And we also issue advocacy statements like when where there are no issues of national importance. The latest being the submergence of regions around Narmada River which is done every year to, yeah, I'm not getting into why. Yeah. So thank you. So these are some of the initiatives that I or we are part of, which you may check out. Thank you.